There was a deployment in Texas for Hurricane Harvey. Before we departed, we were told we were just going to evaluate and do a little bit of searching the next morning. And when we got in there that night, we were told that 20 of us were going to stand up this airport and evacuate the whole community out of that airport, which was a big lift. Just being put in those opportunities really takes you out of your comfort zone and gives you those opportunities to learn from experience, and whether it's the leadership or just operating under pressure, it's immensely valuable.
Being part of the FEMA model, but also being part of the only Colorado task force, it was a lot of pride that you could see people had to represent their departments, but on the bigger scale, the state of Colorado, as we went to go help out Texas in their time of need. And immediately when we got there, there was people that were thanking us for being there. They didn't necessarily see us as the FEMA team, as they saw a bunch of Colorado firefighters and doctors and canines coming to help out their community. You could see the men and women that we worked with were treating it just as if they were looking for their own members of their community. And I think that was one of the greatest testaments to why I think Colorado Task Force 1 is one of the best teams out there, just to see the effort and the care and the heart that everybody put into the overall goal, and that was to bring closure to the families and do the best we could in the time that we had.
Welcome to OpsTalk, Westminster Fire Department's operational training podcast, where we share ideas and knowledge through honest conversations, highlighting the people who do the work. I'm Eric Linnenburger, Deputy Chief of Operations. While built as a resource for our members, we invite the greater fire service and the community to be part of the conversation. What we share reflects our current approach under present conditions. Always follow your department's procedures and guidelines. Hey everyone, welcome to the OpsTalk podcast. So glad you could join us today. We've got a good one for you today. In this episode, we're going to pull back the curtain on one of our more elusive special teams in the fire department, and that is our urban search and rescue team. We're going to talk with two of the members today that are going to kind of walk us through the behind the scenes things that take place on the urban search and rescue team, how it works within the state system and the federal system, and just kind of what motivates them to be involved and do these things. Our first guest is Scott Wilmes. Scott's been in the fire service over 20 years, currently serves as the Truck 2 captain on A shift. He's very involved in Westminster Special Operations. He's spent over a decade with FEMA's Colorado Task Force 1 Urban Search and Rescue Team, where he served in multiple roles, including medic specialist, technical information specialist, and now serving as the plans team manager and team lead for Colorado Task Force 1 plans team. He's also been a member of the dive team for more than 15 years and continues to serve on the technical rescue team. Next, I have Bryce Nilsson. Bryce is an engineer on Truck 2 on the B shift and has been with Westy for 8 years. He serves as a hazmat technician, honor guard member, technical rescue team member, and hazmat specialist for Colorado Task Force 1. Bryce brings a high level of operational knowledge and an impressive arsenal of dad jokes to every conversation. Both of these guys are absolute students of the job and are both dedicated family men and two of the best role models on the job and at home. I'm so excited to welcome my good friends, Scott and Bryce, to the show. Guys, welcome on, and thanks for being here.
Glad to be
Thanks
here.
for having us.
I feel like we're going to be profiling a lot of our special teams on this podcast, and USAR is one of the more elusive teams. It's one of the opportunities to do some really, really cool stuff outside of the walls of our fire department and the state in most cases. But not a lot of people know how to get involved, what it entails, that sort of thing. So just want to get into, what motivated you guys to want to get involved in USAR. And let's talk about maybe some of the roles you've had so people get an understanding of what is available out there.
I guess I'll start. I got on the team in 2011. I got on as a medic specialist. My motivation really at the time is I was at the time involved with special operations in the fire department with the dive team. Just want to continue that. I was been a medic for a number of years at that point and just wanted to go to the next level. And it was a good opportunity to improve skills and just face more challenges. The task force was an avenue to do that. At the time I was doing volunteer ski patrol using my medic, and I just wanted to see how far I could take my medic skills and where I could go from there. And that's what was my intro into the task force. And then from there, being on the task force, going on a number of deployments as a medic specialist, seeing the other roles and the other opportunities that the task force provided. That's when I moved on to tech info specialist, and leads me to where I am now, still on the plans team, but as a plans team manager. That's my current role now.
I think it's cool that we've got both of you guys on today. Bryce is relatively new to the team, and you've been here for a little while, experiencing some different roles. You've had several deployments, right? You've kind of been all over the country, and Bryce just got back from his first. And so we're going to talk about that. You guys were both on that recent deployment. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but really excited to hear the different perspectives here. One of you new to the team, first deployment, and Scott, you've done this and experienced multiple roles. So very cool. Bryce, how about you? What brought you to the team and kind of motivates you to want to be a part of it?
Yeah, like you said, I'm new to the team this year. I actually got on early February, finished all my training, and then I was fortunate enough to get deployed to Texas for the floods that happened in July. The reason I was into it is my officer right now, Brian Clark, he is TFL, so a task force leader, and spoke highly of the team. Everybody that is at our organization that is on USAR spoke very highly of the team, and you always hear that, oh, we're the best, or I want to be part of the best. And the more I looked into it, and the more I talked to members on the team, and the reputation that Colorado Task Force One has in the rest of the country was an attractive opportunity for me. And especially just being able to work with other members that do have experience from all different ranks, all different years, all different types of different memberships for different types of the positions on the team. And for me, being on hazmat, we don't run a whole lot of hazmat calls. It's just in our north area, we just don't have the call volume. And so the opportunity to train with other members that do run the volume and have that federal resource of training to improve my own skills on the hazmat side, and also bring that training back to improve our team and our mutual aid partnerships, and be able to just go out there and expand the areas of service that we have. We do a lot of mutual aid with our neighboring agencies, and I think that the skill sets that we have and the training that we have can be applicable to disasters throughout the country. And it's a good opportunity to go out and serve other communities with the skills that we've been fortunate enough to learn and train on in our own agencies.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and something I want to talk about. I think that there could be questions sometimes about why our local, in our case, a small municipal fire department, getting involved at the national level. You're going to floods, you're going to hurricanes, major disasters. I'm not saying that we've got our own disasters here locally, but some might question that. Some might question us sending our resources out. And I love that you touched on just the benefit that brings back, right? It's not only important that we're helping the nation, because we could ask for help at the same time, but it's also that you're learning these skills that you're bringing back to our organization. And I think the other thing to keep in mind for people that aren't aware is that these deployments are fully reimbursable as well. And so it's just a really, really good opportunity for our people to go out, make a difference, get some great training in the process, but it doesn't cost our taxpayer anything. So I appreciate you talking about that. Let's talk a little bit about the structure of the kind of the federal framework, and then how Colorado Task Force One plays into it. I think it's easy, for you guys that have been in it a little while, it just becomes kind of a natural thing. But to an outsider, I think it seems pretty daunting. Scott, are you able to give a little insight on how the whole structure works?
Yeah, calling me out. I was going to deflect to Bryce, since he's had to study all this before he could get on the team, but yeah, I'll give it a shot. So within the national framework of the USAR model, there's 28 different task forces throughout the country. Colorado just has one task force. Some states have multiple. Like California has, I believe, 8. Florida has 2. Texas has 2, I believe. So it's just kind of spread out throughout the country. And each task force is kind of developed differently. Some are within just one organization, like the city of Orlando. I believe they're all just internal. Miami's is the same way. It's all internal. But for us in Colorado, our task force, we have a whole bunch of participating agencies. So we go all the way from up in Fort Collins down to the Springs, Pueblo, and all the major metro fire departments. We all participate in putting together this task force of members from across the state, which is pretty unique, especially how wide our participating agencies are across the whole state. And then within the task force, there's a whole bunch of different roles, different positions that can be filled, all the way from the task force leader, who's basically kind of like the battalion chief, or the more like the ops/battalion chief in that role. There's medical. We have it's a big logistics lift, so there's a lot of logistics help, transportation, hazmat, search, K9. We have docs that come and deploy with us, along with some building engineers who will deploy with us. So it's a pretty big operation once we get the ball rolling.
Are there specialties among the different task forces? How is it decided which task forces are going to be called in on a mission?
So depending on where the disaster is and depending on what's going on, there's a lot of different factors that factor into that. The rotation model is there's, the 28 task forces, and it's a rotation cycle where we all rotate who's up for that particular month. And they have us divided in the West Coast, Central Division, and the East Coast. And between that, a task force is always from one of those divisions, always at the top of the list. So being November this year, we're currently sitting at the top of the list for any disaster that could happen throughout the nation. But also, when there is an event, it's always the 3 closest task forces to the area are sent immediately on top of who's in that rotational model. And then it just depends on what the incident type is. So some you can kind of predict, hurricanes, they'll try to pre-deploy us to put us in a position so that we can have a quicker response. If there's something that's sudden, an earthquake or an explosion or some type of quick event, they don't have the luxury of pre-deploying us. So it's kind of a rapid deployment, and it's who's available and who can get sent.
Let's talk about that a little bit. That when you said the rapid deployment, I'm absolutely intrigued by the logistics behind this whole operation. I know it differs for each one, but how quickly does an event tend to spin up, and how quickly are teams on the road?
When we get activated, when a team gets activated, there's kind of some different options that can happen behind the scenes. We can get like a pre-activation alert just saying, hey, there's an event happening or something did happen, and they're trying to figure out the magnitude of it, whether USAR resources are going to be needed. You can get a pre-activation alert, which will allow the task force to start spending money to bring people in, to start gearing up and getting trucks loaded. And then there's that full activation where it's authorized that we can fully mobilize and deploy. And kind of the rule of thumb there is 4 hours from activation order, we need to be on the road en route to the destination. So, and each activation is different. In the activation order, they'll put what our requirements are for what time they expect us to arrive. Obviously, majority of the time we're traveling by ground. So to activate a team, which on a type 1 deployment is 80 personnel with all of our equipment, to get across the country can take quite a lot of legwork just to get the ball moving. So to get someplace like Texas or Florida can be about a day travel.
Just amazing the amount of people that have to be working behind the scenes, figuring out all those logistics as well. You got to house a lot of people. You're going into areas that are already impacted, and housing is already an issue. It's amazing to me.
The task force model, the FEMA model, is where we're responding a majority of the time, there is a disaster. So there's no services there.
Right.
And we're trying not to add to the problem. We're there to add assistance to and be a resource and not pull anything from what's already happening. So we are fully self-sufficient and entity as we arrive. So we take all the logistic support and all of our equipment that we can fully support ourselves for 2 to 3 weeks. And the model is initially we can arrive and be fully self-sufficient, including housing and food and water for the first full 3 days. And then after that, we just need assistance with mainly water and food after that.
Bryce, since you did just go through all the testing and I assume it's fresh on your mind, you talk a little bit more about the structure of the thing and then how the different roles fit into it, maybe what some of those different roles within the task force are.
Yeah. And you mentioned if Colorado is a specialty of anything, we do for hazmat have one of 7 HEP packages, which is the hazardous equipment push package. And that's just a resource that's available to the entire country if they need basically a hazmat specialty team to go out there. And you can see that on any big event, or if there is a tragedy that is more heavy on the hazmat side, instead of activating a whole Colorado task force response for that, you could activate our HEP package and you would get members on that team, which are the same thing. It's 12 to 36 hours of sustainability with that team. And then we would just plug into whatever team that is with that. But like Cap talked about, it is a team built up with many different positions. So there's 8 different groups with it, and then 19 total positions within that. Like anywhere from the TFL, like my lieutenant is being the boss of everything. But the coolest part about the model is you could have a battalion chief from an organization that works as a hazmat specialist, a glowworm like myself, and it's unique in the sense that you work with this person side by side. You don't even know that they're a chief. It's just another guy. It's just Matt. It's just Joe. It's just whoever they may be. And so that's where I think the task force is a cool opportunity where whatever your specialty is, there's a spot for you on there. You might not be a battalion chief, but in that position as a TFL. And so you're in charge of leading the 80 people plus equipment and making sure everything goes smooth, starting from the logistics of getting people from point A to point B, but also getting all the information that's passed down from the higher up saying this is your objective, and then trusting the different groups and the team leads and managers to pass that down to the other members of their teams to accomplish whatever that goal is. So on the hazmat side, that's where I tie into. And it's nice because a lot of the teams within the model work together. So as a hazmat specialist, we get tied into the rescue groups. And so we'll go around with them and work with them. So if they come across something that has the potential of being a hazardous material or hazardous environment, they'll just be like, hey, nerd, is this safe for us, or is this safe for the potential victim that we're looking to rescue? And that's anything from air monitoring, if they're doing any kind of saw work or anything in confined space, to just as simple as, hey, that looks like it's a hazardous material, let's stay away from it. And if we do need to go over there, we'll look and see what type of PPE we need and see if that's something that we can access without further resources. And I also had opportunities to work with the canines. So you do plug into all these groups, and it is amazing to see how it all works so well together, especially like for me, I wasn't on the roster for the task force that went to Texas. They were just shorthanded on hazmat specialists specifically. And so one of the other cool things is you could have a specialty in multiple different groups. And so I went out there and replaced somebody that was acting as a hazmat specialist and brought all their medical gear. And then they took over as the medical specialist. So they were basically cross-disciplined. And then it gives them a little bit more availability to work and be deployable because you have 2 things that you're a specialist in or that you have additional training in. And like I mentioned before, it's nice to have the opportunity to train with other people that do have extensive equipment and tools on the hazmat side, especially. Just in our organization, it's unique in the sense that we don't carry or house a lot of that stuff for the North area. We do have hazmat techs, and we would go out and do all of the things and be expected to be proficient, but it's nice to be able to train with people that have the experience, that have the reps of running calls, and be able to learn from them and then take that back to our organization and try to make ourselves better so we can better serve our community and everybody that we work with.
So I imagine just that one deployment was probably pretty impactful for you, and you probably grew years in your experience. You guys are both the type of people that are out there taking on new opportunities and getting involved as much as you can. I just wonder how much that does shape you. You know, Scott, how much has this involvement in your different roles that you're not going to get within the walls of the fire department, how much has that shaped your leadership and your ability to move into some different positions and take on new experiences and opportunities?
Well, I think for me, especially, I've been fortunate enough. I've been on a number of deployments, and every deployment's different. And then your roles, even early on, getting deployed as a medic specialist, thinking, well, okay, I'm going to be working as a medic in this role. But kind of what Bryce alluded to, you'll just come together, and every disaster is different. So every situation is unique, and you'll get plugged into wherever we need you. And those opportunities of just growth have been amazing. And there was a deployment in Texas a number of years ago for Hurricane Harvey, where we were, a smaller task force that got sent out. It wasn't the full deployment. And then within that, we had to pare down, and we got flown in to provide aid into this community of Beaumont, Texas. And initially, before we departed, we were told we were just going to evaluate and do a little bit of searching the next morning. And when we got in there that night, we were told that in that morning that we were going to stand up the airport. 20 of us were going to stand up this airport and evacuate the whole community out of that airport, which was a big lift. So it was all hands on deck of people filling multiple roles and getting put in unique circumstances of everything from doing TSA pre-check to basically triaging everybody that came through and coming up with housing or like waiting areas for people, and just being put in those opportunities really takes you out of your comfort zone and gives you those opportunities to just learn from experience. And whether it's the leadership or just operating under pressure, it's immensely valuable.
Yeah, you're expected to make decisions in those situations. In that environment, you're trusted, empowered to make those decisions. Like Bryce alluded to, the rank you go in as doesn't necessarily correlate to how you're operating within the team. And it's just a great opportunity. And I'm really just trying to encourage all of our people and anybody I come in contact with to, maybe it's not this, but just the importance of getting involved and doing something outside the walls of your own organization. Going to take you so far, open your mind, perspective, all that kind of stuff.
In those instances, there is no real playbook for the most part. Mm-hmm. We're dealing with stuff as it comes to us. We have some guidelines and operational procedures, but we're just doing the best with what we can and trying to help out the community that we're serving at that time to the best of our ability.
Let's talk about that. I know when you guys got back, Bryce, you and I had a lot of conversations about the community specifically and just how impactful that was, I think, for them to feel the support of the team. But I think it was reciprocal. I think it was impactful for you to understand the important work that you were doing down there. Can you guys just maybe touch on this most recent deployment to Texas? We're not going to get into the nitty-gritty details of it, but just to maybe give an overview of how an event gets spun up and how you kind of feed into it and some of the jobs and responsibilities you had while you were there.
Yeah, I was on the second part because they initially set it up as a type 3 deployment. And so it was half of the full-size deployment that you would have. And then, Cap, you were out there for a week or two before the rest of us. So once they basically decided that they needed more help, more hands to accomplish that, they sent out an additional page for members to be part of that, basically marrying up and completing that full type 1. And so that was what I was a part of. It was my first one, so I had a lot of questions, and I was at my phone constantly. I was actually at work doing something for our new hires, and Chief Arnie came up and my lieutenant texted me, said, "Hey, they need hazmat techs, hazmat specialists. Are you free?" And so that had to call my boss at home. So Leanna, I had to ask her if she was good if I left, and we were both on the same page of there's kiddos missing from camp, and we have kids that are the same age, and so we both saw the importance of going out there and doing what we could to give some closure to those families and look for people that were missing. And so that all worked out. And so it was just kind of a race against the clock to get everything going. We kind of had a heads up that we would be getting a deployment. So like I said, this is my first one. So I had a bunch of stuff for all sorts of different scenarios. And so it was me just figuring out what to get, what creature comforts that I would need, and then getting over to our headquarters and looking around and watching what other people are packing. So I must have packed and unpacked my bag probably 10 times. And I was like, oh, that's a good idea to pack. And then I saw somebody else take it out. I was like, you're right, I probably don't need that. And then we were flying. And so instead of all of the bags, we had to pare everything down to two. And so it was challenging to just figure out, I probably brought a little bit more than I needed to, but I didn't want to be unprepared. We were able to fly out. So the logistics and seeing that team get 35 different plane tickets on the same plane in the next morning and getting all of our gear, everything set, was pretty cool to see. And to touch on the community, even starting here in Colorado, we wear our BDUs that have the FEMA patch on it, but I think the Colorado patch on the other side, and then on the back side it has Colorado Urban Search and Rescue on there. So being part of the FEMA model, but also being part of the only Colorado task force, it was a lot of pride that you could see people had because they were walking through to represent their departments, but on the bigger scale, the state of Colorado, as we went to go help out Texas in their time of need. And immediately when we got there was people that were thanking us for being there, like, oh, you guys are all the way from Colorado. Thank you for being here. And they didn't necessarily see us as the FEMA team, as they saw a bunch of Colorado firefighters and doctors and canines coming to help out their community. And you could see that everywhere driving around, just the American flags that were flying, all of the gas stations that were there to help fuel us with all of the energy drinks to just keep us going, and just the gratitude of the community that was so thankful that we were there to help them out. And it was funny that, because we always talk about how Texas and Colorado, one is going to visit the other. And so they were saying like, hey, we only wanted Colorado. Like, you guys have a reputation for being one of the best teams. And that was something that a lot of us took a lot of pride in, to be, hey, we were handpicked to an extent to be out here to serve this community in their time of need, as they're looking for, adults, but also a lot of their kiddos that were still missing. And the fact that they chose us to come help them in some of those more sensitive areas was a lot of pride that went with that. And a lot of things where you could see the men and women that we worked with were treating it just as if they were looking for their own members of their community. And I think that was one of the greatest testaments to why I think Colorado Task Force One is one of the best teams out there, just to see the effort and the care and the heart that everybody put into the overall goal. And that was to bring closure to the families and do the best we could in the time that we had out there.
Scott, you went out a little bit earlier than Bryce. What were you involved in? What were your initial jobs when you got there?
Since I'm a member of the plans team, like, we do a lot of work to get people out, and then just a lot of day to day. So basically all information and all paperwork flows through the plans team, from our activation order to making sure we have everything submitted to FEMA so that we can hit the road. And then just documenting everything as we go. We got deployed about a week prior to Bryce, and that one I didn't see coming. So I knew I was on the list, heard about the floods, but didn't quite know the full extent of it. It was still early on. You're seeing some stuff on the news. I was actually on shift. And funny enough, for this deployment, my wife sent me a text saying, hey, I think you're getting deployed, because she saw something through social media of, I think one of the FEMA groups posted which teams were getting activated. I had no clue. And I was like, I don't think I'm getting deployed. And then sure enough, maybe about 5 minutes later, I get my activation page. So it all happens pretty quick. So you're trying, kind of like what Bryce was talking about. It's a lot like getting mandatoried to come into work, but you're getting mandatoried for potentially 2 to 3 weeks. So it's a lot of making sure you're good at home and you're ready to respond and being prepared that way. And then everything spins up real fast, especially when you have 4 hours and then you're on the road, unplanned road trip across the country. And then once you finally get there, in the USAR world, there's a lot of hurry up and wait. So it's spin up, get going, get down here. We need you down here because there's some type of event. To okay, so glad you're here. Now where do we interject you? Where do we put you? And definitely everybody's motivated on the team, especially traveling across the country. You have 12 to 24 hours to be looking at your phone, trying to update you what's going on, where the needs are. You're motivated to get there and get to work, kind of like you're going on a call, and you want to get put into service and do what you can. And then once you get there, there's a lot of red tape, like, oh, hold up, we got to find exactly where we want to put you and where you're going to need, where our biggest needs are. So that was kind of our experience on this one. We made it down there, and then just trying to get interjected into the incident, and get our assignments. And then once we get our assignments, we try to hit the ground running. And all along the way, we're trying to prepare so that when we're there, we can get to work as fast as we can.
Yeah, it's remarkable. And I think it's appropriate now to talk about that importance of that family support at home. I know both of your wives, both Whitney and Leanna, are just absolute rock stars, and they get it. Like, they understand the importance of these things. And Bryce, you alluded to that. These things have to be worked out ahead of time. And I don't think it's just a USAR deployment or it's very applicable to a wildland deployment as well. A lot of times it's the day-to-day. In order for you guys to be at your best, that support is invaluable, right? And I'm amazed by it. I am forever grateful to them for their ability to hold down the fort. You guys both have young kids. It's extremely hard for you guys to be away as well during that time. But let's just talk a little bit about how you do kind of plan for that, and then what's made it work. Scott, Whitney's been through this a couple times. Can you start us off and just talk about kind of how you guys do plan for these sorts of things and find success?
When I started on the team, I wasn't even married at the time. I mean, Whitney and I were together, but so she's had the opportunity to, we've figured it out as our family's grown. Early on deployments was like, oh, yep, go, do good work. And now it's definitely a more collaborative effort. And I'm very thankful that I have a, very supportive and patient wife at home. So when I tell her that, hey, I'm up on the roster this month, and by the way, there's a big hurricane brewing, in the Atlantic, and her eyes roll. And then I know that she starts thinking about, like, okay, well, we have these sporting events and, these appointments and these things going on. But we also get a lot of support from family and from other members of the organization. They're always calling and asking, how they can help out, which I very much appreciate. But it is kind of a collaborative thing. And it's easy when you kind of know, hey, I'm rostered this month, and you have your gear and you're kind of preparing and you're paying attention to the news cycle and what's happening. But then there's also been a couple instances, and kind of what Bryce talked about earlier, when you're not rostered, but they make that call out like, hey, we need a member in this specialty to deploy. And it's really kind of that last minute, can you leave? And you have less than 4 hours to get down there and get your stuff together. So it's very impactful. And I think early on deployments, with my kids, it was, they didn't really know the difference. It was much like dad going to work, working overtime, stuff like that. He's gone a little bit longer, but now as they've been getting older, you can definitely see it. I was deployed earlier this month out to Tennessee for some flood event as well. And I remember for that one, my daughter came home from school and saw me putting on my task force uniform. And she just dropped her bags at the door and says, no, what's going on? Where are you going? Knowing that I could be gone for a while. So it's tough on them. They get it. They understand. We do a good job in the household talking about, kind of what we're doing and helping out other communities in need, especially during big disasters. So they take it well. They understand that it's not a vacation, but we're out there to do good work and to provide a service. So I think that helps out. And as they get older, hopefully we can still make it work.
I don't think it can be overemphasized just how important they are to the whole operation. They are absolutely imperative to your success and your ability to go impact other communities. And I just want to scream it as loud as I can that, how appreciative the organization is for them. I think we don't always do a great job individually and organization wise, and probably even at the national level, reminding people that they are every bit a part of that operation. Just so appreciative. We couldn't do it without them. Same thing, just the day-to-day. Just come into in our case, a 48-hour shift with, a lot of people are working a little extra overtime and that sort of thing. It's a big sacrifice, and it's very much appreciated. And I know that we're all at our best when we've got that supportive environment.
Well, just to, kind of echo some of that, and I've noticed this over the years too, is like I really appreciate the support that I get at home and from my wife and family, and but they don't get the recognition, like you said, that they deserve. And we'll be out on these deployments, and we're getting all the thank yous and the gratitudes, and we're seeing it firsthand. But they don't get to see that. They might see it here and there, but they're not having strangers come up to them and give them hugs and shake their hands and thank you for being there. And it, like, really, if we could extend that somehow so that they could just see how valuable this is, would be amazing. But I try almost every deployment. My wife gets a bouquet of flowers as a thank you for me, and thanks for holding down the fort. But it's so hard to pass on that gratitude of what this means to communities for us to respond and to be able to provide service.
Very good point, Scott. And the sacrifice is real, and it's so appreciated. We can always do a better job of expressing that. Bryce, how about you? This was Leanna's first deployment. I know Scott was away a little bit longer, but yours was not far behind. I think, Scott, you were over 30 days on yours?
Not quite. I think over 3 weeks. I think it was 22 days total.
And Bryce, how long were you away?
I think it was 14 or 15, around there.
So how was your experience, and how did you guys get through this?
Before even getting on the team, it was a conversation that I had with her, just basically the model of what it looks like to be deployed and the potential of being gone for up to 3 weeks. And so before even getting into it, it was one of those where I wanted to make sure that we were on the same page and in a good spot to actually be a member on the team that goes out, because I didn't want to just join the team and be like, oh, I can't because my kids, or I can't because things are, hard at home. And so a lot of that is a testament to just how strong my wife is and how capable in everything that she does, especially at just holding down the fort. And so when Texas came up, like I said, I wasn't even on the roster, but it was just one of those things where I made a quick call and I said, hey, this is an opportunity. And she said, go for it. And it wasn't even we have this and that. She said, nope, we're on the team. We're on this team together. You go and deploy where there's an emergency. We'll stay home and take care of things here. And the coolest thing too is my lieutenant had myself and our Leanna's and Whitney's email that were basically CC'd on all of the updates that would come out. We were fortunate enough to have cell service there, so I had FaceTime and I was able to chat with the kids almost every night just to say like, hey, how's it going? Get to see them. That was a little easier on them too, instead of just being gone for 2 weeks. Definitely, it is a strain on the family life at home, especially with younger kids. My oldest at the time is 5, and so I have a 5-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 1-year-old. And anybody with kids knows that those are super easy ages to have, especially as a single parent, essentially for the 2 weeks. But like Cap said, we have our second family at Westminster, and the amount of texts and phone calls I got just saying, hey, does Leanna and the kids need anything? Or I had a few people come over and mow the backyard because it looked like I was a grass farmer back there, and just stuff to take a little bit of the extra stress off at home. And that allowed us to fully invest in the mission that we had out there, knowing that things are taken care of at home. And like Kat mentioned, the flowers. I remember we were driving around and it was about halfway through and it was a really hot day and I knew that it was hot at home. So I wanted to get some edible arrangements for Leanna and the kids. And just as a thank you for putting up with dad being gone and believing in what we're doing, but also like as thank you as to the extra weight that you're pulling at home. And it was fun because that started a whole series of other guys sending their flowers to their wife or girlfriend or whatever the case was. And it a lot of the time too in the morning when we were waiting for our managers to get back from their meeting to see what the plan was for the day, it was all of us asking like, hey, how's your wife and kids doing? It was her birthday yesterday or it was your son's birthday yesterday. Like, how did that go? How did they take it with you being gone? Or, do they need anything? And there is that support amongst each other, which made it helpful too. And it wasn't just you were out there on your own little island. And if I didn't have the luck of being out there with another person from Westminster, it didn't feel like you were alone. Everybody was still very invested in taking care of each other and asking how their families were. So it wasn't an afterthought. Everybody was constantly thinking and appreciative of the families that were back at home.
I like that you bring up the support stuff. That's one thing I wanted to talk about a little bit. It's just, if Colorado Task Force 1 is getting requested outside our region, it's likely for a pretty significant event with terrible things, tragedy. How are you guys coping with that? How do you deal with that as a team? I mean, it's like you guys go to training, but then when you go to do the job, it's always to the next level, right? Fire service, we see some terrible stuff. We experience some things, but it's not every call's not like that. You guys are going into terrible situations every time. Are there? You alluded to the support. How are you guys kind of processing that? And do you have any recommendations for others that might be in the field or considering it and how to take care of themselves?
One of the first things when we got out there that I heard them ask was, does anybody on the peer support team or have any peer support training? So that was one of the things that I offered up because I was on our peer support team and have gone through that training. So we had right out of the gate, I think it was 8 different peer supporters from the task force that were there, and anybody could just come up and use you as a resource, which was cool to get that established prior to going out and dealing with any of the things that we were going to see or do. But I think the other side of that too is just understanding what you need. So if you are having a rough go or you need to, have a minute after you do something, just talking to the team that you're with and just say, hey, anybody else think that was kind of messed up, or is everybody doing okay? Or, do you guys need to call home or whatever the case may be? Everybody was looking out for each other. And like I talked about earlier, it was nice to have that access to phones and the internet. So I was able to call my family and see my kids and talk to them a little bit. And that was helpful to deal with any of the stressors that you were seeing there. And so I think that was one of the most important things, especially on the first deployment, to still have access to talking to my family and having them be able to talk to me as well.
About you, Scott, anything to add on that?
No, not really. I think, especially Colorado Task Force 1, they do a really good job of, keeping that in play, like keeping the thought of making sure, checking in with all the members. There's a pretty good phone tree and information sharing for the families back home and for the agencies. I kind of talked about earlier that there's a lot of hurry up and wait, but once we get that ball rolling and you get this USAR machine going, our operational periods, they're pretty long, and it's wake up, get your mission, work pretty much all day, rehab your equipment, rest, back at it the next day. So it's pretty fast paced. And, especially on this last deployment, it wasn't until we were getting ready to demob and things are starting to calm down to where you really start processing everything you did for those past 3 weeks. And I think that's when it's important that you have time and you communicate with each other and you check in on each other and you just see how everybody's doing. And minus the stress of whatever disaster that you're responding to, you have the other stressors at home. Life doesn't change back home. Like, there's events that happen that are unplanned or that you couldn't see coming. And Colorado Task Force does a great job of taking all those in account. If there's opportunities when we can, we've rotated out members mid-deployment. I think we had to do that 3 or 4 times for members during this deployment. Home events that happened. So you need to get home to take care of your family. They made arrangements to make that happen. We ended up getting extended on this deployment. Normally it's a kind of a 2-week deployment, and we got extended beyond that. So there was one individual that had a promotional test that he had to get back to because that list would be good for 2 years, and they made arrangements for that. So they do a good job of recognizing it, and it's not just like, hey, you signed up for this, you're out here, but they do their best to take care of us so that we can take care of the community.
What would you guys say are some of your favorite parts about being part of this team? What are some of the experiences that kind of stand out, or trainings you've been a part of? Anything that might provide a little more perspective on the value of the team and to kind of encourage people to maybe want to be a part of it?
Well, I'm pretty fresh, so it's nice to see all of the different things with it. And before the deployment, we do a annual readiness training, or ART. And it's nice to see that the people that are on the team are people that want to be on the team. Like, you don't get voluntold to join the task force. And so it's one of those things where people that are there are willing to train, willing to go the extra mile, are passionate and believe in what we're doing. And I think a lot of the time you are seen as the best of what your department has to offer. So this person is the best at this role for the organization because you send your best candidates to be a member of the team. And so that with that comes a lot of pride in saying, hey, my department backed me up, and now I'm going to be a part of this elite team. Now I need to be on top of my game. And you're surrounded with a bunch of people that are pushing themselves to improve and be better. And so if that was something that drew me to the organization, because I'm a student of the job, and I constantly have a passion to learn. And so being around other like-minded individuals where we can push ourselves to be better was something that was intriguing and is something that I'm excited to be a part of.
When it comes to special operations, really, like the FEMA USAR system, that's kind of the most elite part. That's where we have not unlimited resources, but we have amazing resources that come with a USAR team showing up on scene. For me specifically, when I first got on and as a medic specialist, just the advanced training, I trained, in all the way from like California, Indianapolis. I was up in New York City at their training center, getting advanced training and mostly technical rescue type scenarios, but all that transfers down to the role and to what we do every day of, responding to situations you quite don't know what you're going to have, complex incidents, even if we have a complex auto accident where you have a patient trapped, and providing medical aid to them in a tight space. Those are all things that we trained on as a medic specialist. It's just might be a little bit different. So, and that goes for all the roles. I know Hazmat has some training. The guys on our task force that are rescue specialists, those guys really, they train in almost every scenario imaginable. Complex scenarios of cars, extricating cars that are trapped in parking garages that have collapsed on each other, tunneling in, building flaps, all that. And that all transfers back to the local level, when we're responding to these situations. Those really are our subject matter experts in those roles. And that's the beauty of the task force, is you are getting this advanced training to be able to go and operate in these austere environments, but it transfers down and makes you better at a local level. And then those are all the people, we mentioned Lieutenant Clark, we have Jeff Held, recently retired Lieutenant Wofford. Those are the guys that are teaching our tech stuff and passing on that knowledge down the line to make us better here at home.
So as we start to kind of wrap up, let's talk about the process to be part of this team. It's not your standard internal, just fill out an internal application and do an interview and a test. Like this is unique because you're applying internally in a sense to be one of the people we support, but then you have to go and be accepted on the Colorado team. So can you guys just briefly touch on, if a person was interested in this, kind of how they could prepare for that, and then what the process is to become part of the team?
I just went through it. So the way that it worked for us is when there's an opening on the team for the organization, then our organization holds an interview process. So you basically submit your application like you would for a promotional process. And then there's a in-person interview that members of the task force ask you questions that are similar to or preparing you for the interview that you'll have at the task force itself. And then so if you move beyond the Westminster interview, then you're selected to move forward, whether if it's one person per shift or whatever the numbers are for vacancies on the team. Then you go and you have an interview with members of the task force. And then so you basically get vetted through your organization and they say, hey, these are our best candidates. We want you to interview them. And then they're going to be what we have to offer to your organization. When I went through, you could pick 2 specialties. And so I went with hazmat and technical information specialist. And those were the 2 different positions that I was applying for. And I was prepared to speak on either of them as far as what my experiences and skill sets were to make me an asset in either of those positions. And then they touch on a lot of the same questions that we've been talking about today. You know, why do you want to join the task force? What do you know about the task force? And it's more so like being as detailed as possible, or at least that's the way that I took it, because if I'm looking to join this elite team, then I was going to give it everything that I had, and I studied for it like it was any other promotional process, because I wanted to know all 23 departments that we were a part of, all 28 teams, you know, each of the different groups and each of the different assignments within that group. And so that way there wasn't anything left to chance or anything that I had left on the table. I gave it 100% because I wanted to show them that that's what they were going to get if they elected to have me as a member of the team. And so to be a member of an elite team, I think you have to put that elite effort in from the beginning to demonstrate, and not just do 80% and then expect them to trust that you'll give 100. I think going in with 100% shows that you're willing to give 100% in an interview. And that's a first kind of reputation that you present to them and show them that you're going to be that workhorse and that person that you're going to do what you say you're going to do. And I think that is demonstrated in a well-prepared interview. And so the interview that you have with Westminster prepared you for the interview that you have with the task force, with all the questions that they ask. And I think one of the most important ones that they ask is, how will your family handle that? And what kind of systems do you have it in place at home that are going to allow you to be a deployable member? And so that was something that they take into consideration too, and they're very good at supporting the families. And that was something that made it an easy decision for Leanna and myself to know that Task Force 1 wasn't going to just send us away without communication. Like, they were very good about sending out updates every day, keeping the family involved. And so that was something that was an easy decision for us to say, no, like they're consistent in that, and they're going to have my family at home to take care of while we take care of other people. And so that was pretty much the process, start to finish, of two interviews. And then once you get selected for a team, you do a more team and assignment specific training that makes you eligible to deploy. And then you have to stay up to date on your training that's specific to what your specialty is. So mine being hazmat is I have a number of hours per year I have to do. And then you have to do that ART, your annual readiness training, to basically stay deployable and qualified to get out there. So on top of the trainings and commitments we have at Westminster, there's a little bit more that you have with the task force as well. But having the support of the organization is something that we've always had, and we feel every time we get out for training or deployments. And so it's a team that I would recommend anybody interested and passionate about serving be a part of.
What is that on average? I know it's probably different for every specialty, but what is the training requirement every year at a minimum to keep your deployability or stay rostered?
At the minimum, besides all your initial training, so whatever your specialty is, getting onboarded with that year to year, every specialty, it's a minimum of 18 hours of training for the year, and then attending that annual readiness training. That's at the minimum. Most of us are doing more than that, especially if you're looking at other disciplines or you want to transfer disciplines. So you can attend other disciplines training. We try to do multi-discipline trainings to integrate the team as a whole throughout the year. There's also a lot of opportunity throughout the year to make those trainings. It's not like, hey, your 18 hours are this month and this month only. No, it's spread throughout the year. And kind of going back to getting on the team, I think it's important, especially to talk about that for us, we have to have an opening within Westminster to allow somebody on the team. And then annually, there needs to be an opening on the task force in whatever position you're applying for. And that just varies each year depending on retirements and people transferring within the system. And for anybody that's interested in getting on the team, I think that's important too, is that you might not see your initial discipline, the one that you love, the one that you really want to be dedicated to, but there are other opportunities on the task force. And that's the biggest thing is if you can get on the task force after a 2-year commitment, whatever your initial discipline is, you can transfer to any other open disciplines. And then if you have multiple disciplines, you can get deployed. You have multiple opportunities to get deployed in whatever those disciplines are.
Appreciate the rundown of that. And then just finally, you mentioned rostering before. How does that work? Just briefly explain, who's up, how it's rostered, that sort of thing, in case people are wondering about that or wondering if they can fit it into their own lives.
So kind of how Colorado has it modeled is, on a full Type 1 activation, we're sending out 80 personnel there's multiple disciplines represented in that 80 person roster. So within the task force, they like to have a 3-deep model at every position. So for every hazmat team member or hazmat tech, there's 4, right, Bryce, that go on a deployment? I can't remember off the top of my head, 4. So we have...
Yeah, and then
Yeah, so we have 12 rostered on the task force total, or that's the goal, is to always get to that point. So then each month, based on availability and based on who has all their qualifications and certifications ready to go, so you can be on the active roster, is you'll get assigned kind of a roster spot. We have a red, white, and blue roster that rotates. So every 3 months, you'll be assigned one of those. It's just kind of like a shift. You'll be assigned on the blue roster. So every 3 months, then you're rostered on that blue month, and it rotates throughout the year. And that's kind of the same model across the nation with the 28 task forces, is that we also share that rotation model. But then it can be that, like, hey, I'm on the blue roster, but I have a family vacation coming up, so I'm pretty much a good portion of June, I'm not going to be able to go. Then they'll tap one of those other people and see, like, hey, can you fill that? And this is just going on, throughout the year. Each month they're making the rosters, just kind of like staffing, just saying who's ready to go, at every month of the year. Then it comes down to the actual day of activation, where the page will go out, and there's a lot of things that happen even in a month time frame where people that were available are no longer available, and then that's when they're doing the scramble and trying to find anybody to fill those spots.
As we wrap up here, I got one more question for you guys. You guys are some of our most motivated people we have in the fire department. We've alluded to it. We've talked about it. You guys are absolute students of the job. What motivates you to continue to learn and grow and take on these new challenges? New guy, Bryce, let's start with you.
It goes back to we're firefighters, and we like to serve our community, and I want to be the best that I can be to do that. So motivates me is just, you have all these opportunities to improve yourself and to learn as much as you can to be an asset and a tool, in the sense to fit in a number of different scenarios. And I think the more I have, even if I don't have the reps in actual calls, but good training, good quality training gives you those reps in your mind to pull back on and do. And so the biggest thing is I love to teach. And if I train enough and I learn enough things, it gives me an opportunity to train more people and to teach more people how to do what I find useful and what I'm passionate about. And so that's what motivates me, is just being a good teacher, being a good asset to the organization and the members and the communities that we serve.
Scott?
Yeah, I think for me is I always like a good challenge. I always try to keep moving forward and finding a new thing and trying to get better at what I'm doing. You can never know too much. You'll always pick up something from any training you go to, and just to make yourself better. And I'm always trying to improve and make myself better so that I can help make those around me better so that, we can deliver the best service that we possibly can. So I'm always trying to challenge, and even if it's just small improvements each day, that can lead up to big changes over time. So I just try to improve myself in many different aspects, whether it's, leadership or, technical skills, or even those darn admin computer skills. Always looking for a way to try to get better and improve each day.
Well said. As we wrap up, I've been taking a few notes here and like to just break down a few of the lessons. I know I didn't grab everything because there were so many along the way, but I think one is that you can't underestimate the value of involvement and taking on different challenges. And whether it's this or not, it doesn't have to be this team. Just get involved in something outside of the normal day-to-day. And there's a place for everyone. Within our organization, we encourage people to get involved. We do have a lot of opportunities for people. And family is absolutely imperative to our mission. And I think it's clear with these long deployments, but I think we need to remember that in our day-to-day as well. Our kids, our spouses, all of our support people are integral in the way that we operate in the service that we deliver out in the field. They are part of that mission. And then lastly, this thing is bigger than ourselves. And we get in this job to serve, to do something that is bigger than ourselves. And this clearly is one of those opportunities to do that. So really appreciate you guys coming on today, sharing your thoughts on USAR, but just in all things fire service and special teams. If you guys don't mind, I will put your contact information in the show notes. I'm sure you'd be okay if people reached out to you with any questions. Appreciate everybody following along with us, whether you were listening, watching. We've got a lot more planned for you in the future. If you have any show ideas, you can email opstalk.wfd@gmail.com. Just appreciate your time and hope to see you again real soon. Take care, everyone.